Hello, everyone, and welcome to Common Time Podcast, where we bring you world-class professional development for music educators straight to your phone. I'm David Clemmer.
And I'm John Pasquale.
And we are your hosts and fellow music educators. In each episode, we will interview a guest who is an expert in their field, here to provide us insight, strategies, and inspiration to help you elevate your ensemble. Hey, everyone. This is our 16th episode of Season 1. And we are excited. We're wrapping up this season, but it's just John and I today. So we're going to jump into a new, something we're experimenting with. We put a post on Facebook asking for feedback, for questions from all of you. So we're going to jump in and answer a few of those, and we're going to hopefully continue this into Season 2, which will start once we come back in January. So John, what do you got, brother?
David, 16 episodes. How about
16.
that already for the first season? Man, that's awesome. So this was a really fascinating experiment to see, what people are thinking and some questions that they have. So there it is one that I found really fascinating. So, and specifically, David, I'm just going to ask you. So was there a specific moment in your career where something began to click for you as a teacher and you realize that you're really actually pretty good at being a teacher? It's an excellent question.
That's a good question. Is there a time that it clicked for me? Man, that's a great question. I don't know that there was a specific moment where I felt like I have arrived, I know things. I'm thinking back to the beginning of my career. Like, I remember walking into one of my first course assignments, which was an oboe and bassoon class, and I knew nothing of oboe and bassoon. It's not true. I actually played oboe a little bit in my collegiate courses, but not enough to teach it. So I went back to my notebooks and I was digging into everything I need to know about starting an oboe as a trumpet player. And I figured that out. The kids, I was probably 1 or 2 days ahead of them. But it was this constant search for how can I better empower them to be great at what they were doing. Did I ever reach throughout my entire career? I kind of looked at it that way. What do I need to know to help, the kids, the students be successful? Man, John, I have 2 undergrads, a master's, and a doctorate. I don't know if it's clicked yet.
I'm the same way, man. I'm not sure I've actually figured it out yet.
Yeah, it's just...
but I've been thinking about this question a lot. And I remember vividly my 3rd year to teach. Now, remember, I taught middle school and I've taught college, and that's it. So I've only had 2 teaching jobs in my entire life. I taught at Griffin Middle School in the Colony, Texas, which is a part of Louisville Independent School District. And I've taught it at the University of Michigan for the last 17 years. So
Go Blue.
Go Blue. But I remember going my 3rd year to teach, because I'm really hard on myself anyway, but especially back then, I'm like, I have imposter syndrome, probably the worst case of imposter syndrome ever. I mean, I sit in Ravelli's office every day, so that doesn't help, but, but I remember I was hired at Griffin Middle School, which at the time was at the top of
I remember
the pyramid in terms of middle school bands in Texas. And I'm like, just don't deserve to be here. And every rehearsal, I was so hard on myself going, well, I could have done this better. This sounded terrible. And so how did I get through that? Well, I had really fantastic mentors, which this will come up soon. But I truly credit Amanda Drinkwater and Dick Clardy, Steve Smith, John Benzer. I mean, people that care deeply about me and my skills as a teacher to help me develop into who I am today. But I remember one time, my 3rd year to teach, I think I even called you after this, because for anyone listening, David's been my best friend for the last 25 years, by the way. But I think I even called you.
Does that mean we're old now?
I know. Yeah, we're a little old. It's the gray. But Alan Bonner, Colonel Bonner, who was conducting the Air Force band at the time, popped into my band room unexpectedly, which is a strange person to have walk through your door, right? And I'm going, okay. So you know what? I'm just like, we're just going to do whatever we do and how it's done. And afterwards, after the part that I was teaching, he was like, John, is it okay if I spend some time working with these students? said, well, yes, Colonel, of course, you can do whatever you want. And he turns to me and is like, this is one of the best middle school bands I have ever heard. Now, he didn't have to say that. Maybe he was lying. I don't know. But at the time, I was like, you know what? Click. At least there's some validation that aren't people that are saying it to me maybe just to be nice, or the fine arts director or the principal or the parents, but it was at that moment, because he's an expert in the field, right? So just like, okay, that was really special. And that really was the first time in my professional life that I was starting to realize that I was actually pretty good at this. Then you take 17 steps backwards, right? You're like, wow, this is really terrible, and then you hear your own recordings and you're thinking, what was I thinking? But
yeah,
right. I mean, it's pretty interesting, though.
It is. I think, you said you're very hard on yourself. And I think that's me too. I've always been hard on myself. So it's difficult to go like, was I truly good at that? I've had a lot of success. I can look on paper and say that was successful. I also look back. I remember when I got the job at Kansas, and I'm director of athletic bands. I had literally never stood in front of a basketball band ever. I didn't do it in my master's degree. Somehow I got out of that. Someone else did that. I think Troy Benefield did it. And then I just didn't do it. And then now I'm going to have to go stand in front of the men's basketball band in Allen Fieldhouse.
One of the most iconic sporting venues in the world, by the way.
Right. And, you can't mess that up. You don't get a do-over. It's a live game. There's no practice sessions for it. Oh. And I still look back and I cannot for the life of me. No, I don't know how I figured it out, but it's just something that had to happen. I'm sure I watched some film. I'm sure I watched some games. I asked a lot of questions. I certainly went to the previous director and was like, tell me what I need to know. But when you get in there, it's crazy. They have this one tune they played. It was a buzzer beater, like right before the buzzer. So 1:20 on the clock, we started Fighting Jayhawk, I think was what it's called. And that's not it. Maybe it was. I can't remember. Anyway, you're going at normal tempo, and then at the break, it goes into half tempo. And that from that point on to the end of the tune, it's one accelerando to the buzzer. And the idea is that when we finish, buzzer. That's what's supposed to happen.
Okay.
And people are watching. An entire crowd of people waits and watches to see whether or not I successfully land on zeros.
He's the new guy, so they're really paying attention.
I'll tell you, well, you need a good drummer to pull that off, because it's really the drummer that does this. But, I would say I got pretty good at it. I bet it was about a 97, 98 percentile. Okay, and there were times that people in the audience would come over and congratulate me, shake my hand. I will not disclose whether or not there was ever money in their hand, but there could have been.
Why does that not happen here?
That's right. But I'll tell you, I look back in that, and even looking back, I remember planning the Orange Bowl, and traveling with the band to the Orange Bowl. I don't remember how I did that. I don't know how I pulled that off. I didn't have an assistant. It was me, and we had a secretary. And I'm thinking back, like, how did I figure out this? I have no idea. But I just remember thinking, like, at some point, this must have clicked for me. But I can't pinpoint this question. I've really thought about this question since it came in. Can you pinpoint when you thought you were good at this? I still look back. I'm like, I don't know. I did it. So who knows? Anyway, but I think we got another question to throw out here too.
Yeah,
you got something else?
No, I was just gonna I was just gonna think about when I felt like I first got it here at Michigan, and this is a banner moment for me. Like I am really proud of this. So 2 years ago, I guess now, I get an email in my inbox from Professor Reynolds. So that's H. Robert Reynolds. And he sends me an email out of the blue, unsolicited. And he and his wife are dear friends of Jessica and I. But in that email, he's like, the band has never sounded better since I've been associated with the program. And that's been since the 50s.
Yeah, that's huge.
I mean, I framed it. I have it framed. I mean, I'm like a little fanboy here for Professor Reynolds going,
oh, that is awesome.
But it took, this is my 17th season. So it took 15 seasons for me to start to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Now, I was confident in the products that we were doing and our instructional style and all of that. But I doubted myself every single day, every rehearsal, every note, every downbeat, every shape of sound, every artistic element. Like, is it? And that moment validated it for me. And
You
man, was
know,
that awesome.
that reminds me of, okay, I can pinpoint one time.
There we go.
So in my 5th year to teach, this is a long story, but I'll try to make it short. When I started teaching, it was high school. I was teaching in Carrollton. And in year 2, a new high school opened up, and it split our school. Our main feeder went to the new high school. They opened up a new feeder, but it wasn't yet really established. So my first year to teach, went to UIL and here, and we got sweepstakes and did all those things. My jazz ensembles, they won TCU, won UT Arlington Festival. I mean, everything was firing on all cylinders. Year 2, the program was cut in half. So the size of the ensemble went from about 225 to 100. We had 4 bands. Now we had 2. And the second band went from playing grade 4, grade 5 literature to, I had a handful of clarinets, 1 tuba. It just wasn't even fully instrumentated. So fast forward, year 3, year 4, year 5. This is my last year to teach high school. And my band, we did have full instrumentation, but not big. We had 4 clarinets, and they were really sweet kids. They weren't really good clarinetists, but they were sweet kids. And I would say most of the ensemble was like that. Back then, I did a whole lot of ensemble fundamentals. I spent quite a bit of time teaching them how to play the instruments, how
Which is
to
a great
listen,
idea.
how to sound, how to relate sounds around the ensemble. And I spent a lot of time doing that. And always telling them that this is going to serve the greater purpose of playing our music well. That was the mindset of look, this is important time for us. We're going to put this out there, but we first need to be better at our craft, right? That year, I asked, the director of bands was Bill Centera. I love Bill. He was a fantastic teacher and an even better boss. I asked him, he would always take the top ensemble to play at the Meyerson. They held a festival in the spring, and my little band had worked really hard. I mean, they had worked really, really hard. We got 1s on stage. We got 2. I think we got a 1, 2, 2 in sight reading. But for them, that's where we were. But I said, Bill, could I take them to the Meyerson? Could we play at the Meyerson? And he thought about it and said, yeah, let's do it. So we went to the Meyerson. I had all my scores memorized. So they took away the stand, and it was just me and this little tiny ensemble. And they're tiered, if you've been to the Meyerson, so it's tiered. And so I'm just looking up at these children, these little kids. We played a concert F, so I gave them the concert F. It was a great sound. We released, and the sound just goes
yeah.
It's just the coolest sound. Their eyes were boop. Holy cow, we're in the Meyerson. And we played a great concert. It wasn't I don't remember what the music was. It wasn't the most challenging program, but it was a program that really fit where they were. They were able to be expressive, but they played really well. One of the adjudicators was Jack Delaney, who was still is, I believe, the director of bands at SMU.
Yeah.
And I would say that Jack was probably, at that time of my life, we were in very different worlds philosophically about how you would approach an ensemble. At the end of this, we have a great performance. I get the tapes. I go back and listen to the tapes. And I can't say it verbatim, but Jack Delaney, he pauses. We finish. And it's just silent. After, I wouldn't say 10 or 15 seconds, he goes, I'm probably not really supposed to say this, but you guys get it. You guys get it. Was it perfect? It wasn't. I mean, there were a few things here and there we could talk about, but you put it out there. You played with emotion. You played with commitment. You guys get it. And for me, it gave validation to all of the things that we were doing to get there.
Mm-hmm.
We did a lot of ensemble stuff just to get to be able to play a single note and hold it steady. It took a lot of time to get to a point that we could start to play emotionally and really provide a connection. And I'll tell you, I don't do this very often, but not having a score in front of me and just connecting with the ensemble, it was like I'd taken away a barrier, and literally the communication between me and them was so unique. One of the most unique concerts probably of my entire life. And to have Jack Delaney provide, even from his perspective, Like, you guys get it. That was a moment where I stepped back and went, okay, all right,
You know,
I'm figuring it out.
and for people who are kind of thinking about this, it's totally normal to be thinking about this. And
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
okay for it to take a long time. You know, I mean, even though I've been teaching for 24 years or so, um, I still don't get it, you know, but I also learn every day. Like this morning, I was reading about piccolo pedagogy just because I'm still not quite sure about some of the intonation tendencies in the upper
Hmm.
tessitura. But so there's this great book that I'll probably share later on, but it's just because I just don't really know about it. So I'm still learning about it, you know. So my advice to anybody listening who is kind of questioning a slow start, or you may not feel like you're good enough, or you know, however that's going to play out for you, it's totally normal and it's okay. You know,
Right.
the kind of litmus test: did the students get better today? By 0.01%, you've had a successful day. Secondly, did the students love the art of music today?
Right.
If they did, you're doing great. You know, so just, and every situation is different, you know, where you are in the country, how the school is set up, your administration, your parent structures. You know, I mean, there's 1,000 different factors, but at the end of the day, teach the kids to play their instruments, teach the kids to love music. You do
That's
those
it.
two things, you're a successful teacher,
That's
in
what
my opinion.
matters.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%, John. That's just it. We're going to talk a little bit later about just kind of recapping on the season, some themes that came out. But one of the themes that was, I would say, primary with multiple of our guests was Cindy Lansford. I think John Alstron hit on it, a couple of others, that this is about the kids, the students, the performers, who's in front of you. And I remember watching a video. It was a recording of Fred Fennell. Several, I don't remember, I saw it probably 10 years ago, and the video is probably 25 years old, but him being questioned, and this is from a middle school perspective, like about making music. And his statement was, make music with the people in front of you.
Yep.
Doesn't matter if they're the Berlin Phil or the second band at middle school, make music with the kids in front of you. It's such an important thing for us to always remember. This is about them. It's not about us. It's not about this person doing this. It's not about even ratings. It's about the students and the experience that they're having. And then obviously bringing music to them, and hopefully for their entire life. So, with our students, we're obviously trying to provide them this environment to grow and to be better humans and better musicians and so forth. But I would also add to that, like that word of affirmation, just kind of going back to Jack Delaney, was so important to me. I would encourage anyone out there listening that if you're in a position of authority, if you're a director of bands, or you don't have to be a director of bands, but you happen to be in front of someone who's doing a great job, don't be afraid to send them an email or a note. I mean, Bob Reynolds reached out to John, and it absolutely made a difference for him. So, and Jack Delaney just saying that on a tape was, I mean, I'm looking, gosh, that was, I don't know how old I am. It was then. I was it was around 2000, like 1999 or so. Like, when computers were supposed to stop working, about that time. And some people won't even
Y2K.
remember that. Yeah, Y2K. People are listening like, what is he talking about?
You can Google it. Yeah.
Y2K. But right around then is when this happened. That's how long ago. And it's still meaningful to me as I was thinking about it. Like, wow, that experience was fresh in my mind. So if you're out there, send a note and say, you're doing a great job, or thanks for all that you're doing. That affirmation can go a long way. So just wanted to throw that out there before we go on to another question
Yeah.
from a listener. Let's see. John, what makes a piece of music good?
Okay, well, this is a very short answer. Yeah, no. So this is wow, what a great question. You know, this is an unbelievably challenging topic to narrow down
Yeah, I think so
because
too.
there are so many factors I think that go into this. One, it's very individualistic. right? Because there are pieces of music that I think that are fabulous that some people don't, and vice versa. But I think anyone who is considering pieces to play with their ensemble, I would encourage you to kind of think about a couple things from my perspective. Number one, what are the students going to get out of it? Are they just going to learn to push buttons? Are they going to learn to count? Are they going to learn fundamental skills? Which, by the way, all of those things are fabulous. If that's the goal, play the piece. If you want to learn about a cadential clarity, you want to learn about chord progressions, you want to learn about harmonic layering, pick a piece that's that. But I do think that there are pieces that are good. And I think that the canon exists because there's really fantastic repertoire that has been composed over the years. I also think there's a sizable part of the canon that's not great. And it's just, but that's a tough one to answer.
Yeah, when I saw the question, I was like, "Ooh, this is dangerous ground," because it is individual. We don't always feel the same about music. There's some people that hate Symphony in B flat by Paul Hindemith. I love that piece.
I don't understand that one because that's a pretty fantastic piece. But
just
hey,
it's
everyone's entitled to it.
Yeah, but it's orally challenging for some.
Sure.
I think it's genius writing.
Yeah.
I think the complexity that are built in there, the layering that's built into there, he sticks to form, but he takes form and expands it in such a way that, like the first movement, sonata form, but it has like 6 themes.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit typical sonata, but there's still a form to it, and you can follow along, and there's a connectivity there that I love. The greater piece fits also for me when I think about the second and third movement of a symphony being fused together in his second movement. And then the third movement being sort of like this grand finale, which is a double fugue that he creates and then layers in theme 1 from the first movement. Like, my mind's going, yeah. And some people are like, I can't listen to this. So I agree with you. I think it's very individualistic.
It's tough.
But it doesn't have to be difficult.
No, not one bit.
There are pieces of music. Anne McGinty.
That was the first concert band piece I ever played in 6th grade band, the Foxwood Overture by Anne McGinty.
And that's important.
I still remember it. F, bum, bum. I used to play trumpet back then. D, 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 D. I still remember it.
That is incredible. Well, and Shackelford Banks.
Shackelford Banks. That's a great piece.
You're a scholar on that piece.
I am the world's leading authority.
Yes. Authority. But I think those pieces are important. Red Balloon I've used in conducting classes.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
To help students connect on something that's simple. So I don't want to answer this question, but I want to point out something you said that I think is real important, is that if the students are learning something, if they're gaining something out of it, that can make that piece of music have significance. So it's not always about how difficult it is, if it's worthy of going on an honor band program or anything like that. It just depends on sort of the purpose of that. And I think this is a perspective that I try to keep in check, is that sometimes we do think about difficulty as a sort of something that we consider in terms of whether this is going to be a good piece or a bad piece. It's not always the case. Sometimes a very simple piece may be exactly what the ensemble needs, and it can be fantastic for them. So I'm always thinking about that.
I would encourage teachers to think about, when in terms of quality of piece, remember to program for the ensemble and not for you. Right. Like, just because you love the Hindemith Symphony, your high school band may not be ready for it.
Right.
So
go.
No, I was just going to say, like, it's okay to stretch and it's okay to push and it's okay to, but there are certain things that are, in my opinion, inappropriate in terms of the skill gap, because they could do more harm than good. What do you give? Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Amen to that.
There's a lot of pieces that an ensemble may be able to work out and get the notes, but are those students going to walk away with a depth of understanding musically from that experience? And I would always say, in terms of choosing music, what is that experience going to be like for the students? And it's not just about can they do it. Can they figure it out? Can we do all the notes and rhythms? Can we get that taken care of? With enough time, enough repetition, almost anything's possible. But again, should we do that? So that's a question that we all have to grapple with when we're programming. And that isn't just middle school, high school, that's collegiate ensembles as well. Like there are some pieces in my career that I desperately have wanted to program, but the ensemble's not really ready for that. And the experience that we would have together, I don't think would necessarily be joyous. And I have to take that into consideration. Like, well, that's on my list, but we're not there yet. And when we get there, I'm going to make sure that happens.
Which also, by the way, there are fantastic pieces of music that are not technically challenging, that are fantastic and beautiful.
Absolutely.
And so even if that you do conduct a very advanced ensemble, it's okay to play that kind of music. And in fact, do, I mean, in my own concert programs here at Michigan, I tried to do something every concert that's atypical for the caliber of student that I conduct every day, but it's really good music. Now, you don't need to rehearse it every day, or you only need a short rehearsal segment, to prepare it, but it doesn't mean that it's any less valuable.
Yeah. I would argue that also allows those students a bit more freedom to really take ownership of not only the learning process, but how that they're going to express through that music, because they're not struggling so much with
And it's amazing how much
bolts.
like students just want to play.
Yeah.
And sometimes not think too much, so that's,
That's true. It doesn't always have to be hard. Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah. I'm just kind of piggybacking on this discussion of not so difficult pieces. I remember that when John Mackey, when we interviewed him, one of his, he talked about the Baylor Ensemble, one of the best wind ensembles in the country,
by far,
having just played one of his grade 3 pieces.
Yes.
And how wonderful that was. So I think it's really important, like great pieces. It's not always about the piece itself. It's how it works for the ensemble and what experiences are we providing for them. And I know Jerry Junkin also mentioned, I don't know if it was in his episode or just something I've talked with him about previously, but I know that at the end of each year, he sort of assesses the strengths and weaknesses of his ensembles throughout the year and then uses those as an application moving forward. Okay, when I program next year, what are some areas I need to address? What are some things that I can, through programming, help the ensemble achieve? Which I think is also good for all of us to consider as we look back, at the end of a season. So,
I actually do that in the marching band world too. I'm thinking, okay, our last year's ensemble had a particularly difficult time with like multiple tonguing. So then next year we're going to do a lot of pieces that require multiple tonguing, so that the students learn that skill set, which I think is very important. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was a great question. I appreciate.
Thanks.
I appreciate being asked. Yeah. We do have it looks like one more for this episode. It's for both of us. What is your favorite time signature, John?
Obviously, common time is my favorite time signature, of course. Right? But a far second is 7/8, because Stravinsky is my favorite composer, and so he would use a wide variety of time signatures, obviously, but not necessarily in his music, even though his is absolutely true. But like a 7/8 for me in my mind is extremely versatile, all the iterations of it, and it just, I enjoy it. I understand it. It speaks to me in a way, and I just really like it. How about you?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, the obvious answer.
I also didn't know that Stravinsky was your favorite composer.
He is, yeah.
I love Stravinsky. So I wrote a couple of papers about his music, and one of them was in my master's degree, 20th century, with Roland Barrett. At
yes,
OU.
Dr. Barrett,
and
hello, if you're listening.
If you're listening out there, it was over Symphony of Psalms, and it's to this day still one of my favorite pieces. I love the octet as well, and Symphony's a wind instrument, but the Symphony of Psalms just kills me. Common Time is obviously, clearly, is a standout for me. I mean, like, really.
Yeah.
I mean, really shouldn't even discuss this, but part of that, when I think about this, though, I do like common time, but I think a lot of times, like, in the band world, we get a lot of time signatures thrown at us. Like it's one of the when I'm marking scores, it's one of the things I have to make certain that I mark. I remember conducting Schwantner Mountains Rising Nowhere. Like,
Great
holy
piece.
goodness cow! Like, and I remember looking down one time. Like, there's measures in that are, if there's no music there just might be blank, like just a little blank in the score.
Yeah.
And looking down, and for whatever reason, my eyes being drawn to that blank spot and not knowing what meter it was, and in my brain, completely freaking out. Which was a note to myself in future score marking, like mark the blank measures because it's going to come up.
Yep.
But for that reason, I do like 4/4 sometimes because I don't even have to think. I can just be in the space. I can, Now that said, I really like a Aegean Festival Overture.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know why. Played it in
You
high
get
school.
paid by the meter change.
Played it in high school, and like just the way it flows and bounces. And then I used it in conducting classes to
Okay.
teach
That's
asymmetric
rude.
meter.
Yeah.
And I love that piece. So I'm just gonna say 5/8, but I mean closely related to 7/8 in there because.
Sure.
But I would just say asymmetric meter in general. I really do enjoy it, especially when it has that kind of lilt of Aegean Festival. So
Great
yeah,
piece.
that's mine. I'm sticking to it. Oh yeah. So anyway, let's move forward. We're done with the questions, but I'm curious, John. Like just thinking back over the season, this is our 16th one of those. We've had 15 guests.
Amazing.
Do you have like a memorable moment, something that stood out to you that you enjoyed?
There were so many. My mentor is Cindy Lansford. If anyone hasn't heard the episode with her, please go check that out. I think that she's the matriarch of band in so many ways. I student taught with her a long time ago, and she changed me as a human. She changed me as a teacher. And that episode, I think I can't emphasize strongly enough the importance of having a mentor, even
Right.
at any stage of your career. I mean, I am mid-career and I still actively seek mentorship,
Right.
and I'm extremely thankful to have had really fantastic mentors and still do, like Michael Haithcock, Professor Reynolds, you, David, many people that I care deeply for and respect deeply. It's important to be able to bounce ideas off of people. It's important to be able to say, what am I doing wrong? Why can't I figure this out? Why can't I think about it? And it's in a safe space. It is judgment free. Speaking of mentors, Amanda Drinkwater, she's a formative mentor for me in my early career.
She's
and
fantastic.
She, I think, is the best high school band director to have ever taught, ever.
We
period,
have to get her
paragraph,
on. Absolutely.
Hard stop. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
she's
so
fantastic.
she would explain things in a way that I think was extremely helpful for me. And it was just monumental. And it was simple, and it was concise, and it was positive, and it was encouraging. But all of the mentors that I've had, they're not afraid to kick my butt when I need it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing too. So for anyone that's older, if that you are a mentor, sometimes you're going to have to give some tough love, and that's okay. We as mentees, right? That's the word.
Mm-hmm.
We as mentees need that, and seeking it out. And by the way, if you are the mentee, make sure that you're able to listen to the feedback and not respond to it. Yeah, but no buts. Listen, take it, think about it, and process it. Have it percolate. I think it's really important.
Absolutely. Cindy's episode was fantastic, and I can hear her voice saying, "It has to be about the kids." I can just hear it, like it ringing in my mind. Her saying that and how important that was for her when we asked her about those things, and it resonates with me. And then secondly, in terms of having a mentor, this is something it's been a recurring theme throughout the entire season, having a mentor, getting out of your own space and listening to other bands. And even when you're busy, take the time. You got the day off, go across town and just listen, take in the information, ask questions. You're going to find a lot. I'm looking back in my career, I wish I had done more of that when I was younger.
Yeah.
because there's so much knowledge that's out there that we just have to look for it. And once it's there, we can embrace that, and we're going to grow more quickly. And for whatever reason, when I was younger, I just was kind of in the zone. Like I'm just in my room doing my thing. And I had some people come in sometimes, but I didn't as much go out and search for, especially my first few years of teaching. And I now especially hearing all these people say it, like find a mentor, and not just for a
Yeah.
few years, for your life.
Your life.
For your life, be a lifelong learner. That's such an important theme that also came back. And Richard Crane at the end, he was a great person to have toward the end because he really kind of brought it all together historically. His profession is longer than I've been alive, basically. Be a lifelong learner. He was talking about being in someone's band room the previous week, learning information, wishing he had known that when he was younger.
Yeah.
So I think that's
and
theme to just, keep at it.
And also ways for us as kind of mid-career people now. So if anyone's listening who is mid-career, go and sit in early career teachers, I should say it that way. Go listen to their ensembles, because I learned something from my rehearsal pedagogy students every day. I learned something from beginning teachers and early stage teachers almost every time I'm ever in their room going, wow, that's a really great way to think about that. I haven't thought about that yet. Just because people are younger than you doesn't mean that they're not good at it, so
Right.
It's a give and take relationship, right? But you have to also, as the mentor, be able to take mentorship from the mentee, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think there's a reciprocal relationship there.
Yeah,
And I
that's
think
a
this
good
is
way to say
also
that.
important to kind of talk about. You're building trust with these individuals, and you want that trust, because trust will allow for vulnerability, and growth can happen through vulnerability like that. So I think you do have to be open to being mentored and listening on both sides of that, and asking questions. Our episode with Kathy Johnson mentioned
talked about this exactly. I
talked
was
about it
just going to
quite
say
a
that.
bit, because
Yes.
she was working with
Yeah.
teachers that are going into the field, first year teachers and student teachers. And that's such an important part of that learning process.
And I'll tell you, her ensembles at specific, I mean, she's had fabulous ensembles everywhere, but I remember them going to McCamey Middle School when she was there, and my jaw was on the floor. Like, how are you getting this product?
Right.
It was so good, and, I mean, in the classes that I teach here with my students that are on the podium, how I grade them is quite simple. Show me a rehearsal process that I haven't thought of or seen yet, which makes them get creative in a way, right? And sometimes it fails and sometimes it's great, and we kind of talk through all of that. But it's really important not to do something just because your teacher did it, or your high school band director did it, or your college band director did it. That may have been good for 20 years ago, but people need to take the information that they got in school and then kind of manipulate it to whatever works for them, right? But I find that really fascinating. I mean, we both mentor a lot of people all over the globe. I have conducting students currently in Russia and Central America, and I mean, so we are doing things virtually, of course, but it's really interesting to be able to talk through things in a way where my mind is always open, going, okay, I see why they did this, I see how they did this. This is really effective,
right?
Yeah,
and I'll tell you, the whole idea of mentorship, sometimes I almost wish we had a system set up for, like, we're just paired with people.
Yes.
That, over a year, this is your mentor, and vice versa, not just young and old. Like, you've been at it 10 years, you've been at it 2, we'll put you together. No, but just different experiences, different things that you can learn from other individuals by putting yourself out there. I want to say one last thing, though, about that, because in the mentor role, if you're a seasoned director, I think it is important. Obviously, we have to be, like we mentioned, lifelong learners, but I think we also have to be, there has to be a sense of patience and kindness that's always communicated when there's another younger person that you're giving information to, or if they're struggling with something, is trying to find out where they are, like what's going on with them emotionally, psychologically. That is an opportunity for you to help them grow into a better music educator. And I think that's a really important responsibility.
Huge.
Even if you didn't sign up for it, It's still part of the responsibility of being a mentor. And everyone is a mentor. Everybody that you're in front of, or you're in their rooms, everyone that's, if you're a director of bands, director of orchestra, the person that's your assistant, those kinds of relationships are so important. But always with just a sprinkle of humility and kindness goes a long ways, because those people are probably struggling.
Yeah, and also too, just because you're a mentor doesn't mean you're an effective one. I'll say it.
I didn't say it.
Come at me.
So
So it's important to that point though, it is critical how you deliver information with empathy, kindness, compassion, understanding, yet concise. It's really important.
yeah, John, you do something. I've seen you in your teaching that you will make students that whether you're the mentor or teacher in a professor role, they have a tendency to be hard on themselves. And I've seen you make them address the positive before ever
First
getting
question I
into.
always ask.
Yeah. So the first question is like, tell me 3 things.
That
What
you
is
did
it?
well.
You tell me.
Or
Okay,
no,
3 things that you did well.
It's actually what went well.
What went
and you
well.
cannot say nothing.
Right. You got to find it. And I think that's such an interesting way to approach that, because a lot of times we're always practicing for this unattainable goal of perfection. We want it, and we're getting as close as we can get to it.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of pressure that we place on ourselves as teachers. And I know as a young teacher, I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I don't think that I didn't handle that real well with students sometimes, if things weren't going the way they needed to. And I look back and think, wow, that is such an important responsibility of understanding where we are all in this journey and addressing the positive, finding the positive first. And you mentioned this, I can't remember who we were talking to, but it's like a positive sandwich, he's positive.
Yep.
And then you deal with whatever needs to be addressed, and then a positive again. And then you said, yeah, but it can't be like, wafer thin positive, and then
can't be a cracker and
there's this huge amount of meat and then a little cracker. Like, there has to be like positive. And I think that was in Lindsay Boysen's episode.
Yes,
and
it was actually.
If you haven't listened to that episode, folks, I would go listen to it, because we were talking about just all of the things that we deal with in terms of mental health, and taking a moment to audit your time and recalibrate, and find hobbies, things to do that are outside of the classroom. It could be musically related, but it doesn't have to be.
Right.
I think that's such an important aspect.
Speaking of, what are your hobbies?
John, you know my hobbies. We travel so much together.
We do.
My hobby is travel. It's always been travel, and I love traveling, experiencing different cultures, and meeting people that are doing music in other cultures is all very fulfilling for me. Most of you, I would say, maybe not. Who knows? John and I have been friends for 25 years, but we've been working together on some projects in Europe for the last 10 to 12 years, I guess. And so we've made friends in Europe that are now, they're some of our best friends.
Yeah.
And Christoph Bratak and his wife, like, these are people that I adore, and it came through music.
Marcus, like all the people in Germany. Yeah, absolutely.
And these are all just through travel and music put us together. And I probably travel. What about you?
Well, for me, I travel with my best friend and my wife and Theresa, who's also a best friend. We all travel together, which is really important. But I also love to learn languages. So I spend a lot of time on that, which is really great. It's an outlet for me. I also like to just be calm.
Just be quiet.
My fabulous wife, Jessica, and I, in the evenings right now, we have our Christmas tree up, and we have a townhouse, so we don't have a fireplace, but we have this huge television. It's embarrassingly large, but it's we put a fire on there, and we listen to some calm music, and we have a cocktail. We talk about the day or just listen to music together, and that's what we do. And I absolutely love that. And the cats, we have 2, unfortunately, but they are around, and it's like the family time, right? It's but it's a way for me not to think about work, because for all of us, I think we all work too much. Like I work so much. I almost feel guilty sometimes when I'm not working for Michigan or when I'm not doing, because we have multiple jobs, right? Like
Yeah, absolutely.
we teach, we lecture, we're authors, we have a podcast, we've got a lot of
You have a
different hats. Like
podcast.
we teach conducting, like it's a lot of things, and I love all of it. I absolutely love all of it. And I love the pressure of it. I love the stress of it. Maybe I'm weird, but I love all that stuff. But I also love time talking to my parents. I love talking to family, sitting around and just being with friends. And sometimes let's talk about anything else but football or music. Or
Yep.
if I don't have to talk about Ohio State anymore, that would be really great.
I've got some funny memes I need to send you. I've been just
By the
holding off.
way, if we have any Ohio State fans, I do want to make a shout out to Chris Hoke. He's the marching band director at Ohio State. He is a good dude. The guy's a great
Absolutely.
teacher, and Phil Day, the associate there, they are doing really really good work, and it's an honor to call them colleagues and friends.
Y'all did a joint
We
performance
did
at BOA, which I
at
heard
BOA,
was
yeah, that was
amazing.
really fun.
Yeah,
And
it's
in Columbus a couple weeks later, yeah.
yeah. I have people like hell's freezing over. What's happening here? Michigan and
That was great.
Ohio are on the
You,
same.
Speaking of that, this is the strangest thing. I don't think I've actually told you this yet. So we were doing the combined rehearsal in Indianapolis before Grand Nationals, right?
Uh-huh.
And it was us and Ohio State. And we were in this huge room downstairs because it was terrible weather. It was cold and miserable. And so we were inside doing this rehearsal. And there was this ensemble on the other side of the partition, right? And I'm like,
Right.
man, they sound really good. It's not surprising because all the ensembles there for
Yeah, right,
finals
sure.
were great, right? So after the rehearsal was over, I just popped over through the partition to see who it was. And they saw me walk in like, oh, do you teach at Michigan? I'm like, yeah, I just heard some really good sounds. Where are you from? He said, I'm from Prosper. Prosper.
Yes.
Is John Alstrin here? By the way, check out John Alstrin's episode in our first season. And you're like, yeah, he's over there. One, he's my college roommate.
That's
And two,
awesome.
I'm like, of course, because his band is freaking amazing because
Yeah.
he's a genius teacher, right? And he's the fine arts coordinator, but like he also
Yeah.
mentors all those teachers there, and just they sound awesome. Of course,
That's
I'm like, yes, of
incredible.
course it was.
That
What a
is
small
incredible.
world, right?
John Alstrin. Yeah, if you haven't seen or watched, listened to John Alstrin's episode, it's a great one. John he is such a good dude,
He
but
is a good
also
dude.
just a great musician
Yeah.
and
like a philosophical thinker.
yeah, he really is. Like he
Yeah.
just he could. We could have had 2 or 3 episode links with him and
We
just
will.
listened. Yeah, the information he was given to us. So, in any case, but hey, everyone, we're going to wrap up. It's our last episode of season 1. We're so thankful that you listened in, and
Spread the word to everybody. Like we're just here to help you. Ask, we're trying to fight the good fight with you.
Yeah, absolutely. We have, and I'm excited. We're already working on season 2.
We are great guests.
We'll start that when we come back in January at some point
after the holidays.
But I think we're going to be listening and touching base with Larry Livingston, which I'm excited about, and Rodney Dorsey. I believe Rodney's going to be on. One of our good friends, Todd Dixon, Barry Hauser. Like we're going to have a great list of individuals to just connect with and hear from. Give us some more information, about what it is that we all do. So again, we are extremely thankful that you have tuned in and listened, and we really look forward to what's upcoming.
Indeed. And also, everybody kind of let us know any kind of thoughts that you have or any suggestions for topics or guests. Reach out on our socials. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. You can catch us on Instagram. You can catch us on Facebook. Please send us some information. Send us a DM. And because we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to get those questions answered. And
Indeed.
If you've got a good topic or a person you'd like to hear from, let us know.
Thank you, everybody. It has been an awesome first season. We appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, everyone, that's a wrap for this episode of Common Time Podcast. We hope you gained some valuable insights and inspiration to take back to your ensemble. New episodes of Common Time Podcast drop every Monday. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please take a moment to leave us a rating or a review on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us reach more music educators just like you. And a special thanks to our wives, Jessica and Theresa, for keeping us organized enough to make this happen. Also, don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media platforms at Common Time Podcasts for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and more. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Keep making music and keep making a difference.